Welcome to Canuck of the Dead. We are here to wrap up our Rob Zombie Halloween recap. And without further ado, Benner, how's it going?
Hey man, good. Yeah, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me back again. I don't even know what episode this is, but one of many.
20 something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're up there. But this is the one that's going to wrap up the zombie timeline, so to speak.
Yeah,
it's Halloween 2. And you know what? Let's just jump into the trailer. We'll get everybody up to date.
Let's do it.
Hope it's the right one.
Lock the place up tight. I don't want any surprises till I get there in the morning.
6 guys lift 1 stiff. That's one for the books.
Help! I'm trapped. Ah! Help me!
Since the authorities haven't been able to produce a body, do you think Michael's alive or dead?
Will he kill again?
Let me make things clear. Michael Myers is dead. D-E-A-D.
So, how are you feeling?
Nightmares are chewing at my head again. They just seem to be getting worse.
I've had 4 calls about Michael Myers today, all in the space of 10 minutes.
Are you a giant?
I know he's not gonna come back just because of some stupid holiday.
I need you to call 911. We're at 15 Cherry. Maya, what's happening?
Nurse.
Evil is here.
I'm not me.
Who are you then?
I'm Michael Myers' sister. He's gonna kill me.
It's going to be all right. It's going to be fine.
No,
Listen.
it's not.
There we go.
Okay.
That's a great trailer. You know?
Yeah, I dig it, man. Like I I mean, like the trailers. I mean, I gotta say the trailers for all these movies that, for the most part, have been pretty solid. I'd still go and see. I'd still go and see this. I think that's why a lot of people did, even after the first Rob Zombie remake. It's interesting. Like I feel like we'll get into this probably a little bit later, but showing Michael Myers' face, I'm not a huge fan of it. So I would maybe cut that from this trailer, but ultimately it looks good. Michael Myers on a rampage. I mean, that's what you're paying for, right? So,
and I know with me, this film has got some visually stunning scenes, like just his cinematography. One of them in there that just jumped out at me is when he's flipping that car. And it's got that bright light behind it. And it's all silhouetted. And like, there's some gorgeous shots in this film that I've never seen from Zombie before.
Yeah, there really is. Artistically, it's probably it's such an interesting film because it's like you said, it's got some really, really artistic stuff in it. Really beautiful stuff. And maybe his most artistic film that he's ever made. We're of course doing this before the Munsters has come out. So, but I think this is probably his most visually like stunning film that he's put out as far as just artistically, right? Like I feel like cinematography, I think his best is in Devil's Rejects, but just artistic kind of like notes that he hits here. But also on top of that, it's probably the grimiest movie he's made.
Yes.
Or at least it's up there probably with 31. where and probably Three from Hell. Like it's sort of like he kind of got into this groove. I think he got into that groove with this film, which I'm not a massive fan of. I think that, and the only reason I say that is, like we said, we'll just preface this. I love Rob Zombie. I love White Zombie. Like Astro Creep is one of my favorite albums of all time. I really love the aesthetic and everything he's put together career-wise. I'm always excited when he's got a new project coming out because I'm just interested to see what he does. I don't think they're all home runs. I don't think they're all winners, but for the most part, he's always an interesting cat to see kind of what kind of falls out of his head. So I'm just going to preface that. I don't want anyone thinking that I hate Rob Zombie or whatever. I'm definitely not. But my criticism for Rob Zombie's directing is just because I do feel that he's actually more talented than people kind of give him credit for, and also maybe that I think he's more talented than he might even give himself credit for. Like I feel like he kind of leans on the griminess and like the real sort of like the I don't know, like the scumbaggy like I don't know what you would call it, like that sort of like yeah, and I think that I really do wish I like that. Nobody writes shitty characters like Rob Zombie, so that's cool. I just think, like we said in the last episode, I think sometimes he goes a little overboard. He does need to be reined in, and I wish he could kind of just put more of his focus on other aspects of the film or the story of whatever he's directing. Because I do feel like he would create just a better movie than he has. I think this is a great example of him maybe trying to do that and him getting sort of raked over the coals for it. And then maybe he did shy away from this. So because like I said, I think that this is kind of the start of where he got into this kind of grimy, like super grimy directing style. I think that was a result of Halloween, the first Halloween movie he made. So the first remake, 2007, of it maybe not being received as well as he wanted it to be. Or I don't know. I mean, it's well documented. He did feel hamstrung in the first movie. He wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. John Carpenter, not necessarily, kind of like half giving kind of like a half-ass blessing on the film, which obviously, you know, if you're remaking, I mean, not that I've ever remade a movie like this or anything, but it must be kind of daunting when you're like, this is my hero. I'm remaking this because I have so much respect for the original creator, and that the original creator coming out and saying, yeah, I guess so. And I think, I mean, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of, I'm sure it creates a lot of stress. And with all the amounts of money that are flying around on some of these projects, you know, you want to deliver. So I can't imagine. My take on this is that I think this movie, Halloween 2, is a response to all that criticism, is a response to sort of saying, okay, well, if you don't like my directing style, how about I give you this? And it's kind of a bit of a fuck you to a lot of critics, I think, and maybe even a lot of the fanboys that were overly critical of the first movie. And having said that, though, he does shoot for the sky here artistically. I don't think it necessarily works, but I got to give him credit for trying to kind of really blow this franchise past, you know, a couple of markers that I don't think have ever been really passed through before. I don't think anyone's done it since. Maybe it's not the right franchise, but again, sometimes when you try stuff and it doesn't work, I do feel that people still deserve some credit for trying something new. So, again, Rob, just before we get into it, I'll sorry, I'm talking a lot this episode, but I'm excited to talk about it. But we should preface this by also saying that there are two cuts of this film that are drastically different.
Yes.
The theatrical cut, which was released in the theaters, obviously, and is available on that split Blu-ray, which again I didn't grab, but it's Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, both theatrical cuts on one Blu-ray. But the version that a lot of people have seen, the most common version, is the director's cut, which is included in the Scream Factory box sets, both Scream Factory box sets, and that is typically the one that people have watched at home. So very different versions and some stuff to get in on that. But yeah, let's your thoughts.
Well, two quick little tidbits. Just to start out, in that trailer, it starts out with Loomis saying, "Let's get things clear," when they were talking about Michael still being alive. That's not the full quote from the movie, and I love it because it's actually a nice little homage to Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange.
Right.
It's a direct quote from the movie. It's "Let's get things nice and sparkling clear." And I love that little nod to A Clockwork Orange and Malcolm's previous career.
Yeah.
The second little tidbit on this one is this is the film that started the relationship between Richard Brake and Rob Zombie. He was brought in as a recommendation by, and I can't remember, I think it was Sid, but I'm not sure. And this is what started. He went in to do 31, 3 from Hell, and now The Munsters. Like he's now in this relationship with Zombie for his films, and this was the one that started it.
And a lot of things carry over from the first film. It's funny you mentioned Richard Brake, because he's just, again, he's sort of this working actor that's been around forever, has done a ton of movies. Like, it's funny too, because when you sort of get to know an actor and then you see something else, and you're like, oh shit, like that, there's that guy. Like, like I watched Doom recently, just randomly, it was on TV or whatever, and I watched the first half an hour of it because I hadn't seen it in 20 years or whatever. And Richard Brake is in Doom. He's one of the like the Rock's, like the Rock runs this sort of like whatever infantry type of unit, and Richard Brake's one of the guys. And I was like, yeah, Richard Brake, right? So it's he's been around, yeah. And
he recently showed up in Mandalorian.
That's right, yeah, absolutely. So
he is a character actor.
He's a character actor. He's been around for a while. And again, I that's one of the things that I love about Rob Zombie is the fact that he always uses these guys and girls, gals, I guess, that are actors and actresses that have been around for a long time, have had very, very storied careers, but they're very, very talented and have always kind of been on the peripheral and stuff. And making those talents sort of like the focal point in movies, I think is really cool. I think I love the fact that he does that. Malcolm McDowell probably being the clearest example, the most recognizable, I guess, to general audiences. But again, just awesome to see that. Character-wise, we'll talk, but it is cool to see the actors in those roles, because I think it gives them some just gives them a bit more of a spotlight. And I think Rob Zombie should get a lot of credit for doing that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things that happened with this film that caused the theatrical cut to be as panned as there was. And the first one was like, Rob Zombie's made no secret. This was his horror, was working with Weinstein's on this film. And he only did it because they decided to press forward and do this sequel, and he didn't want someone else to mess it up. So
that's right.
He got everything going. In the first week of filming, they cut 2 weeks from his filming schedule. So he had to trash sections of his script. Right. And then lastly, they were supposed to launch it in Halloween. And as you see from the trailer, they bumped it up 2 months and launched it in August. So the editing was cut back. So they weren't able to produce what they wanted. And that's why the director's cut did come out.
And again, we've talked about this in a previous episode. I can't remember which one, but like the fact that these movies don't come out at around Halloween is like mental to me. Like, it's just so mental. Like it's the movie that people are going to see on Halloween. And so maybe don't have it come out right on Halloween. You want to create some buzz and stuff like that, but maybe like the week before, so you have a big box office thing and you can carry over that box office to your second week, kind of to reduce your drop off. Especially if it's a good flick, people are going to go see it. I completely do not understand that. And also as well, like I don't have a memory of anything coming out around Halloween, like systematically, where it's like, for a while, like Will Smith owned the July 4th weekend, right? Every year there was the big blockbuster would come out with Will Smith, and it was Independence Day and Men in Black and whatever, and that would be the weekend. I don't recall anything like that happening on Halloween. So it's not like they were bumping something off. Anyway, I don't understand it. I know Saw did it, and Saw did it like their whole campaign was like, it's Halloween, that means it's time for Saw, or whatever the tagline was. And everyone went to see those movies because they were like, it's Halloween, we need to go see a scary movie, just like you go see a Christmas movie at Christmas. Anyway. Yeah. That's my rant. I don't understand it. It's you feel like you're leaving money on the table, but that's just me.
I just looked, and literally there was 4 releases in October for that year. Sorry, 3. One of them came out in September, was Paranormal Activity, September 25th, 2009.
Okay.
Zombieland came out October 2nd. And then the other 2 were October 9th, Couples Retreat, and October 16th, Where the Wild Things Are. Neither of them are horror related.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. You feel, I guess maybe the idea was that first of the trough gets the dollar, I guess. So maybe they thought like Zombieland and would have too much competition earlier in the month. But I don't know. It's just strange to me that they always do that, because we've seen that throughout the the series that there's been some weirdo dates that have popped up for this movie where it's like, just drop it around Halloween, man. Like, I mean, it's like the easiest decision you could make. So that's interesting that they would do that to cut the editing. And again, I mean, now it's funny though, because just like the first movie, my criticism still stays the same. I feel that between the theatrical cut and the director's cut, I think there's a pretty good movie here. And for some reason, either cut doesn't really scratch that itch for me. Like, I still feel that there's really brilliant things in this movie, no matter, I don't care who you are, but I do feel that there's some brilliant stuff in this film. There is also some questionable stuff that is like, geez, I don't know why that was in there. I think I've narrowed it down to what the issue is, but so remind me. But yeah, let's talk about the story and yeah, where did you want to start with this guy?
Well, I know my biggest complaint, and I know it was only because there was never meant to be a sequel, is the spiritual stuff they've now stuck in there, where that should have been peppered into the first one to really make it a solid story. All the stuff about his mom, the visions with the horse and all that. I honestly believe if this was a true story, it should have been peppered into the first one so that you're not blindsided by it in the second one. You know, like,
It's a bit weird.
yeah. But again, I know the sequel was never planned.
It's cool because those sequences are beautifully shot. Sherry Moon Zombie, I didn't mind her as Michael's mom in the first movie. She was used sparingly, and I thought that was smart. I don't want to say that I don't think she's a bad actress, but I understand I understand people not necessarily liking her. Like, I think she's more fitted to play a character you don't like, kind of like when she played Baby in Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses. I think that's kind of her fit. But I didn't mind her as Michael's mom in the first movie. In the second movie, you're right, it kind of comes out of nowhere. You're sort of like, and especially in a movie that's, you've seen so many entries along the way that, you know, this is what you kind of feel like. I wonder if a lot of people felt it was sort of like going back to like Cult of Thorn type of stuff, where it's like, here's something that's so bananas and outrageous and outlandish that like, where are we going with this now? It's turning into sort of like a ghost story a bit, and I don't know if it quite works. I think the concept of Michael and his mother is interesting, and I like the fact that Zombie tried to explore that, because I think that's not anything that's ever been explored before, as we've watched so far, and to best of my knowledge, nothing that's come after this. So I think that's an interesting storyline. My biggest thing with this film is if you watch the director's cut and the theatrical cut, the director's cut does not, like, they make Laurie Strode seem like a shell of her former self. Like, she's psychologically broken. She's not necessarily a nice person or a likable. I guess a likable person would be a better description. She's broken. She's scarred. She's had this crazy trauma from the first film, and that's an interesting thing as well that I don't necessarily think was fully explored. We touched on it on H2O. We said that was kind of an interesting idea for them to follow Jamie Lee Curtis's version of the character, the original version. Mm-hmm. Showing that this trauma had existed in her for a number of years. And of course, that's something that's revisited in the Blumhouse remake, or the Blumhouse requel, or whatever we're calling that. But you know what I mean. Yeah. Everyone out there knows what I mean. So like revisiting this idea of trauma and that sort of stuff. So I do feel that that's interesting. However, what's your thought on the Laurie Strode stuff?
I gotta admit, I really liked it. I'm just gonna jump back a little bit to that spirituality thing.
Sure. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I love that they try and give a direction to Michael. You know, like you said, the Cult of Thorn, he's being driven by these committee of cult people, whatever. Now you see it's his mother that's driving him to find his sister, you know? And that's why, I mean, that would have been beautiful in the first one. Because then you get to the end and you would have had his mother standing there saying, show her the picture and things like that. You know, it would have made it that much stronger in the second one. But you're right. It is gorgeous.
And I do feel like he's trying to explore that plot point that we've talked about a number of times as to Michael and Laurie being related. And is that plot point, is that a driving force for the story? Should it be there? People have differing views on that. I actually like it, but I do feel he tried to kind of give it some sort of I don't want to say realistic. I'm trying to like, he's trying to give it more context, and I
Yep.
think that's an interesting thing to tackle. So yeah, it's and the horse is kind of like, I don't know, it like you said, it's a little bit out of nowhere. And had they kind of touched on this in the first movie, maybe it would have made a bit more sense here. So I know that that's the biggest sticking point. And in the theatrical cut, there's more of it. Or sorry, the director's cut, there's more scenes that I don't like that need to get. They shouldn't be there because it just creates more confusion. It does seem like a traveling ghost show at some points, trying to track down. And then you have Laurie, who is like, basically psychologically destroyed from the first movie. Not necessarily, she's definitely not as likable. And I'm talking about the director's cut. She's definitely not as likable in the second movie as she is in the first movie. There's reasons for that, of course. But the theatrical cut does paint her as just sort of like the same type of character. And it's a little bit less jarring when you watch it. So yeah, I don't know which version I like, but I've got my own thoughts on that when we get to it.
Well,
So
I know, and on the Madhouse, James and Jason and I, we talk about reading a movie as opposed to watching a movie. So if you go in and you watch a movie and it's like, okay, but then you start reading about it and go back and watch it and you love it, you're not loving it for the film anymore. You're loving it for the research you've done on it and now understand it more. And to me,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to read about a movie before you watch it. But reading on this with that white horse, I now understand it a lot more. Like Rob Zombie said, the only reason he chose a white horse was because it was cinematically pleasing. It looked good on screen. He
Yeah.
goes, literally, it could have been a fire engine. It was just a token to show of his life as a more innocent child. And since I've watched it reading that, I come to appreciate those scenes a lot more than I did in that first viewing.
Yeah, and there's also the extended in the director's cut. There's extended scenes with Laurie and the psychologist, which or psychiatrist, I guess, which is Margot Kidder, which is awesome from the original Superman films.
Another nice nod to the actors.
100%. And there is a kind of like a Rorschach painting on the wall, and she's like, "What do you see?" And Laurie says, "I see a white horse." And she's like, "What does that mean?" And Margot Kidder says, "Oh, it just means that you like horses." And so I thought it's interesting that I think again, like the director's cut adds some more context to that, but it also adds in some other stuff that I don't think does the movie any service at all. And like you were saying, like, I mean, yeah, once you know kind of the ins and outs of how they made the movie and what kind of went into it, if you need to do that, I don't know if that's I don't think that's an indication of good storytelling. And it's very similar to when people say, "Oh, that character's popped up," and I'm like, "What?" Like in any big sort of big time movie series, like either like Star Wars is a classic example, right? And Matrix was a classic example as well. Like, "Oh yeah, that character," and I'm like, "Where's that character from?" Like some comic book, some video game. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like you can introduce characters like that. That's no problem at all. I have no problem doing that. If they're fan favorites, so they have another following and you want to try and incorporate that into your film or your franchise or whatever, that totally makes sense. But it's just like, you can still introduce them in a way where people who don't know who the hell they are can say, "Oh yeah, I actually like that character too. Cool." And they don't do that anymore, I don't think, in the bigger blockbuster movies, which is unfortunate. I just feel I think that's just a sign to me of not great storytelling. I don't want to say it's incompetent. It's not. A bit lazy, I would say. And you really should, every character should come on the screen and you should kind of care about that character in one shape or another. Either you hate them or you love them or you like them or you're concerned for them, concerned for their safety and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think
They do that for fan service, and like they just did it in Doctor Strange. You get to that first post-credit scene, and Charlize Theron shows up in a purple outfit, and people are like, "Whoa, who's she?"
Yeah, who's that? So I feel like, yeah, I mean, for this movie, and not to digress too much, but the idea of having this symbolism of Michael's mother and the horse, and perhaps innocence that he once lost due to his own psychological break, and how does that relate to Laurie's own psychological break that she's having? But Yeah, I think there's a massive misstep in this film. Um, and I just wish that Rob had gone a different way. But yeah, I don't know. Can we get to that? You want to dive into that? You want to hear my theory?
Well, let me just add, I do like his interpretation of the PTSD that she's going through. It's the best one so far.
Yeah,
You know?
it is. Like she's emotional, she's rash,
Hair trigger.
hair trigger, belligerent, and scared. And I mean it's again, I mean, Laurie Strode is supposed to be a teenager in senior year of high school. Uh, I can't relate to that as a woman, but or a girl or whatever, but I can tell you, like, just, I think we've all gone through high school, most of us, right? So at being 18, you still don't, or 17, 18, you still don't really have a handle in the world. You're still confused about a few things, and things that affect you. You definitely handle them differently than you would if you were an older adult. And I think that that's something to keep in mind. I think she's a complex character. She's definitely more complex in the director's cut, and it is an interesting. It is it's certainly an interesting performance from Scout Taylor Compton, of course, reprising her role, and also. Again, it's some credit needs to go to Zombie to say this is what we're going to do with this character. This is how we're really going to explore it. So it's definitely an interesting watch to take a character that you're supposed to love and twist them a little and still have them sort of be the hero of your film. It's definitely challenging for sure.
I have to say, the PTSD stuff made me love that character more, like feel for that character more, because there's actually two elements of it. Because you have the beginning of her PTSD, and then literally in the middle of the film when that book drops, and you now see her fall even further.
Yeah.
Like she's like spiraling huge. And I know it made me feel for her more because, like you said, we can't relate, but I know how I might feel in that situation. And
well, yeah, and also like just the tinges of teenage rebellion in general. How would such a traumatic event affect you? And she's lost her family. Obviously she's living with Annie and Sheriff Brackett now. And I just it's just, and of course just that the throwback to Michael's lost innocence and how that's carried forward, and now she's lost her innocence because of Michael. So you sort of have this kind of storyline of or at least the idea of like a vicious cycle. And does Laurie break it, or does she continue on? Which I think is something that's touched on the theatrical cut. Again, something that's touched on the theatrical cut, but not touched in the director's cut. So spoilers, of course, alert, but like the ending of the theatrical cut where Laurie, like that's one of the big differences is the ending of how the film ends. I actually really like the theatrical cut a lot more, like infinitely more. One, Michael doesn't talk. That's a big thing for me.
yeah.
And just the fact that she comes out of the again, spoilers if you haven't seen it. It's a movie that's like, almost 15 years old, but whatever. But Laurie comes out wearing the Michael Myers mask. And then you kind of cut to like the fact that she's in like a mental institution and whatnot. Is she dead? Is she not? I mean, I think in both versions that's sort of left fairly ambiguous. But I like the fact that maybe she's turned completely. Like I just thought that was very unique and unexpected. And I would say, like, Scout Taylor Compton is so much smaller than Tyler Mane, who plays Michael Myers, that mask does look a little comically big on her.
Like Dag.
But yeah, I mean, maybe you can't avoid that. But again, I just think that ending is a lot better. It's a little less supernatural, like in the director's cut. Like Sherry Moon shows up for an extended period of time, and it just feels a little bit more it just feels leaning into more of that spiritual side of things or the supernatural side of things, which I don't necessarily think you need in these movies, especially with the griminess and the real. And again, going back to what we were saying before, like the griminess and the realism that he brings to this flick kind of it sort of conflicts with this sort of artistic spiritual side of it, and there's almost like two things going on at the same time. Again, I think if you took the director's cut and the theatrical cut, meshed them together and sort of like cut this out, kept this and extended this and, you know, cut that back and whatever, I think you would have a film that I think would be more accepted by the fan base universally than what you have now. So
See, I love the director's cut ending to a point. I don't like him speaking. I'm 100% on your side there.
what does he say? Die.
Die when he's
It's like, God. It reminds me of like Vader saying no.
exactly.
In Revenge of the Sith, where you're just like, oh my God, why does that need to be in there? He doesn't need to talk.
Yeah,
Anyway.
just no. But I love the fact that this concludes it. Like you see Michael get killed, you know, and then Laurie gets killed, and it has that beautiful shot. This is what I mean. Like, it's artistically amazing because you get that overhead shot of it coming down and it's panning, you know, and they're all laying there on the ground, and then it fades, and then it cuts to the sanitarium where, and again, I didn't understand it when I watched it. I've read it and I love it now, is the fact that that is her last conscious thought of her insanity, like just her mind broken. And then she
Right. Where in the theatrical cut, it does seem like it's like she's actually in there as opposed to being dead, right? Like that's
Right.
like, yeah, which
So,
I like. I like both of those things. I mean, I think it's funny too because I know around this time when there was still talk around this time of Zombie making a third like Firefly movie, like a Devil's Rejects sequel, and he said no. He's like, I'll never make a trilogy because they always fuck it up in the third movie, historically, right? Which, and I kind of feel he was right, because he made 3 from Hell and it just did not. It, like, again, it's like worst of the 3 movies. Sorry, Rob, but you know, that's just Devil's Rejects is one of my favorite. It's brilliant, but anyway, whatever. But that's a conversation for another time. However, I wonder if that he was still on that sort of like that wavelength, and I feel like he was like, "There's no way in hell I'm making a third movie." But I do feel like this story had a movie to go to, like a final chapter. And I kind of wish he was able to make it. I don't know what it would have been like. I don't think his heart would have been into it. And I think that's unfortunate because of, you know, obviously the stress and the pressure of the first movie, and then rolling this over into, like, you know, basically the fight that he's able to do whatever he wants in this film, but at the behest of the Weinstein brothers, who, as we know, you know, allegedly are not great guys.
yeah.
So it's weird. I think that I don't know if this is a big screw you to them, or just doing whatever he wants, or just saying, I'm making the movie I want to make and I don't give a shit. Maybe it's that. But I kind of do feel like this would have been cool if there was another film after this, just to kind of complete this trilogy. But I'm not sure. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm the same way. I think it's just, you know, I want more Michael. I want more. I love what Zombie was doing, so I want more of it. But I don't know. I'm kind of glad he didn't do the third one, you know?
So a couple things with this film. The opening, again, Zombie deserves a lot of credit for making Michael Myers truly terrifying, which hadn't been done in a long time. He'd almost become a bit of a comical version of himself, like a caricature of himself, basically. The mask gets done right in this movie until it falls apart.
Yes. Okay, hold that thought, because what we'll do, we're going to pick this up in our bonus show.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Stick around for Benner's thoughts on this, and then I'm going to see if Benner knows what Sherry Moon Zombie and HBK Shawn Michaels have in common.
And also, I'm just going to I don't want to forget about this. I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you what I think Rob Zombie should have done with this movie to make it even better. So yeah, stay tuned.
Stick around.